councillors. To start with an acknowledgement of country. The council acknowledges and pays respect to the Tasmanian Aboriginal community as the traditional owners and custodians of this land on which we live. May the words of our lips and the meditations of our hearts be always acceptable in the sight of God. Welcome, councillors. We have an apology from Councillor Dick Rose this evening. And we'll move straight on to 1.1, confirmation of the minutes. Can I have somebody move? Councillor Hiskett and Councillor Heine. Any queries on those minutes? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. 2.1 is council workshops. There's a list there. Can I have somebody move that report be received? Thanks, Councillor Beswick, and seconded Councillor Overton. Any queries, comments on those workshops? I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. 3.1 is Mayor's communications. I have none. 3.2 is the Mayor's diary. There was 2 changes to that. I didn't get to the League working group, which is the West Ulverston Local Enabling Group for the Child and Family Learning Centre. And unfortunately, our Emergency Leave and Emergency Management Committee meeting clashed with the Community Safety Partnership and was too late to attend. Other than that, everything is there, and Deputy Mayor has also represented council for those events. Can I have somebody move that report be received? Thanks, Councillor Viney, and a seconder, please. Councillor Beswick. Any queries on any of the report? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. 3.3 is declarations. Anybody wishing to declare an interest?
Thank you, Mayor. Just bringing it in point 10.09.
Thanks, Councillor Hiskett. 4.1 is councillor reports. Councillors who have been appointed by council to community and other organisations. Anybody wishing to report? Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor. Reporting for 2 activities. One is the Disability Access and Inclusion Plan Working Group that have been working with the Director for Community Services with a group of community members are examining how council through in our practices can be better inclusive and make sure that our practices and processes and our interaction with those that suffer from a disability or have a disability, we can improve that. As part of that work, the group has devised a survey that is going out to the broader community and to council staff, and will be circulated just to capture how we are currently doing against some activities and how we can do it better. So that's a really pleasing piece of work, and that group will meet again in the new year. And the other update for our council was the Marina Community Centre. I was happy to attend a meeting with them last week, and with the Director of Infrastructure Services and some other staff for the long-awaited toilet and change room upgrade there, and the committee have been provided a new timeline, and we are all very excited to see that underway. So looking forward to this. There's nothing better than a good new toilet there.
Precisely. Thank you. Any other reports? Thank you. 5.1 is leave of absence. There are no applications. 6.1 is deputations. There are no requests. 7.1 is petitions, and there are none. 8.1 is councillor questions without notice. Councillor Van Mildred, question. Councillor Beswick.
No, Mayor.
Councillor Viney.
No, Mayor.
Councillor Overton.
No, Mayor.
Councillor Fuller.
Thank you, Mayor. 1 to the Director of Community Services and 1 to the General Manager in closed place.
Thank you. Councillor Hiskett.
No, thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Carpenter.
Thanks, Mayor. 1 to the Director of Infrastructure and Engineering. 8.2 is council questions on notice, and no questions have been received.
9.1 is public question time. That will be held at 6:40. And 9.2, public questions taken on notice. There were no questions taken on notice from the November meeting. 10.1 is minutes and notes of committees of the council and other organisations. There's quite a long list there. Can I have somebody move that they be received? Councillor Fuller, thank you. Councillor Beswick, second. Any queries on those minutes? No, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. 10.2 is the annual general meeting for the year ended 30th of June. And we're looking for a report on the meeting being conducted. Can I have somebody move that report be received? Thanks, Councillor Beswick. Second, Councillor Overton. Councillor Beswick, would you like to speak to this?
Other than it was good to see a couple of the community members there. It'll always be good to see a lot more. Some do say that at least we must be tracking along in a reasonable way, otherwise we'd have a lot more attend. I was speaking to a councillor from another municipality recently, and they said they'd had to book a bigger hall out because they were expecting so many. As everything from our plan and the papers that were prepared by staff, a very thorough document. Anybody that may be listening, that's available for anybody to have a look and a read. Other than that, the evening went well, and the people that were there.
Any other speakers? Councillor Fuller.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to mention, I think we discussed it last year also, that I do hope that the General Manager and staff can perhaps find some opportunity to create something that can be shared in our electronic newsletter or on our Facebook page, if it's just the photo, the year in review with the photos perhaps, but we know that video clips and so forth on our Facebook page do get a lot of interaction, and we know that people are busy, and it's a great way to share stories with people, and so I would encourage us to find some ways to share that information.
Any other speakers? I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. 10.3 is Council on Development Support Special Committee meeting scheduled for 2022. Can I have somebody move the suggested resolution? Thanks, Councillor Van Ryn. Second, Councillor Viney. Any speakers? Anybody wish to speak to this? Not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. 2.4 is correspondence addressed to the Mayor and Councillors that is scheduled there. Can I have somebody move that be received, please? Thanks, Councillor Fuller. Second, please. Thanks, Councillor Hiscott. No queries on that correspondence. I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. 10.5 is contracts and agreements. There's a schedule there. Can I have somebody move that be received? Thanks, Councillor Carpenter. Second, Councillor Viney. Any queries on those contracts and agreements? I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. 10.6 is the common seal. Updated schedule. Can I have somebody move that be received, please? Thanks, Councillor Hiscott. Second, please. Councillor Beswick. Any queries on those items? I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. 10.7 is the Reconciliation Action Plan. There's a report there. Can I have somebody move that the report be adopted? Sorry, the action plan be adopted. Councillor Fuller. Second, please. Councillor Hiscott. Councillor Fuller, would you like to speak to this?
Thank you, Mayor. As we know, Council has been working on a variety of activities and workshops and presentations to increase our own awareness of challenges faced broadly by First Nations people, and more specifically those in Tasmania. So this is the culmination of the work of the working group, and working in conjunction with some local providers and Reconciliation Tasmania. So I feel that we're all very familiar with the work, and I'm certainly comfortable with the actions, and I look forward to progressing those over a period of time. And certainly my thanks to those people from our community that have been part of the working group and helping us to compile that action plan.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Hiscott.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just would like to acknowledge the work and push that Councillor DePose has put towards this project as well. It's something that I think we can all identify as important to understand these things, and there's a lot of actions in there that will help our community better interact and understand the information that's available.
Bring more. There's some great actions in there. I'm looking forward to taking part in some of those things.
Their side, there doesn't seem to be a lot of enthusiasm amongst the members for this, and I certainly don't have any enthusiasm at all now. I remember 1967, I was 22 years old, and for the first time in my life, I had a referendum on the future of the status of Aborigines in Australia. And being the sort of person that I am, I investigate, make up my own mind and that sort of thing. And quite frankly, I was disgusted insofar as here was I, 22 years old, had lived in this country for only 17 years, and I had to determine the future of the Aboriginal people in Australia who have been here for thousands of years. And I found it very hard to deal with, as did my father. We had quite a few discussions about it. The referendum was about whether Aborigines should be counted in the census. Previous to that, they were regarded as part of the flora and fauna. And it was disgusting. But anyway, luckily, the Australian people saw fit to support the referendum by 90% of the vote. It's the biggest pro vote at any referendum in Australia's history. Having said that, I also met a very well-known Aborigine in my youth by the name of Doug Nichols. And I guess you've all heard of Doug Nichols. The AFL played the Doug Nichols round of football. He was a pastor in the Church of Christ, and he came to preach at the church over in West Ulverstone, where we used to go. And he told us the story of his life. Born in an Aboriginal reserve in 1906, he left there at the age of 14 and became a show tent boxer. From there, he went to Fitzroy Football Club and played 54 games with Fitzroy. And to cut a long story short, he finished up Governor of South Australia. And I was very impressed with that man. I really was. So I have a lot of empathy for the Australian Aborigine. I have a problem with this document for the simple reason that I'm not sure whether it is going to lead to inclusiveness of people with Aboriginal ancestry or divisiveness. I believe that that document is a wonderful document if it applies to everybody in the community, not just one group of people. I believe that we're trying to set up an apartheid system that we condemned in South Africa, except in this case it's in reverse. We should all be treated the same. We are all Australians, and that's what it doesn't matter how long we've lived here. Everyone should be equal. I find it hard that we are going to adopt this policy because there are people in the municipality that have Aboriginal ancestry, albeit going back 5 and 6 generations. They also have European ancestry. You never hear anything about that. They only talk about their Aboriginal ancestry. I find it hard to believe that there are people that need special services, special encouragement, when the Aboriginal, people of Aboriginal descent that I know in this community have done extremely well. Some of the most successful farmers in the municipality are of Aboriginal descent. And I believe that a document such as this is inappropriate in our municipality. If I was living in Alice Springs, in Darwin, which have a real underclass so far as the Aboriginal people are concerned, they live on the fringe of society, I would be all for it. But that's not the case in our municipality. In 1976, there were 7,000 Aborigines. There were 7,000 people that identified as being Aboriginal. In Tasmania. Yeah, I had to ask for the attention there. And there were 7,000 people that identified as Aboriginal. In 2016, there was 23,000. I've got the figures off the internet only today. Now, the reason for that is some would say that many people were not prepared to come out and say that they were Aboriginal. Yes, and I would suggest we had a big increase in the number of Aboriginal people in the community in the late 80s and early 90s when there was a lot of Aboriginal money floating about. And people were rolling up and putting their hand up and saying they were Aboriginal. Without any proof, all you had to do was sign a document that said that they identified as being Aboriginal and that they were identified in the community as being Aboriginal. I can remember during my time as mayor, as the warden of the town, people would come to me and ask me to witness their signature. Well, I wouldn't do it because I knew a lot of the families, and they were certainly not disadvantaged. They were just the same as you and I, lived in similar houses, they worked and everything else. And so what I'm saying is that I think that the Aboriginal movement in Tasmania has gone way overboard. Even Michael Mansell can't agree that, well, he says that a lot of the present day so-called Aborigines are tick-the-box Aborigines. They're his words, they're not mine. In other words, you get a form, you just got to tick the box to say whether you're Aboriginal or not. There's no proof, there's no DNA testing, there is no family trees involved, and it's become a racket. It really has, and I'm not going to support this document. It should apply. I mean, the wording of that document is quite good, but it should apply to everybody in the community, not just a few. Thanks, Mayor.
Mr. Van Ryn, I cannot agree on so many things. However, I'm going to ask Councillor Fuller, would she like to close this debate? Please, Councillor Fuller, and perhaps you may address some of those.
Thank you, Mayor, and what an unexpected pleasure to get an opportunity to respond. Councillor Van Ryn and I have half had this conversation so many times, and I do hope that perhaps over Christmas we might get a chance to actually finish the conversation. And it's good to be able to have this sharing of different views, because I acknowledge and appreciate that the views that Councillor Van Ryn holds are the views that are held by members of our community. And now the task, obviously, as it was the task of the leaders in 1967 to propose the referendum, as it was the task of the leaders to encourage the Uluru Statement of the Heart, as it has been the task of leaders before us to just make what they think is the best decision for their community and those that they represent. It can create, there is a fine line often between something that is inclusive and something that is divisive, and there's lots of examples of things that can do that in our community. As I said, I suppose that's the challenge of leadership. And I don't presume to know that all of the people of Indigenous heritage in my community are not facing challenges of disadvantage. I do know what the statistics say Australia-wide. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble with this microphone again, aren't I? I do know what the statistics say Australia-wide, and I have to then assume that my community displays a percentage of that, or is not any is greatly any different than the statistics nationally. I do know that people that identify as First Nations people have greater prison statistics than other people, including folks of European heritage. I know that they have poorer study and education outcomes. I know that they earn less money per capita than I do. And I know that as a general representation, they are in what we would classify a lower socioeconomic group. And I know that there are deep-seated reasons that are only 200 years old that puts those people in that position, and that we can't fix everything in 200 years. Countries across the world are still trying to rectify the challenges and the problems that they have created thousands of years ago. And, New Zealand and Canada continue to try and resolve the problems that they have created in those few hundred years. So for me, this is a small step that I can make on behalf of my community to go some way to fixing and taking some ownership on some of those items. I do know people in our municipality who do very well, as Councillor Van Rooyen has remarked. I also know people that have Aboriginal heritage in our community who do not do so well. They are part of the community, as are people from all different types of heritage, but nationally, statistically, they are highly disadvantaged, and this is a little way that we can go to undoing some of the wrongdoing. I would just close in saying that I was a child in the 70s and 80s when the money became available for people of Indigenous heritage. I'm disappointed that Councillor Van Rooyen would draw that connection between people making a different stance about their heritage and financial benefit. I know personally from my own family history that there were lots of us who did not make a connection with Indigenous heritage. That was because they held a different view about the financial payments that might be made. All of it is part of a long and complex bunch of problems that we created when we came to live here. So I would just ask those that feel strongly to support the Reconciliation Action Plan.
I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against?
Aye.
The motion is carried. Now move on to 10.8, Council acting as a planning authority. Can I have some move that, please? Councillor Beswick, Councillor Biscuit. I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. 10.9, sports and recreation, rodeo and gymkhana activities, discretionary use and reliance on traffic generating use and parking code 822 South. There's a report there. Can I have somebody move?
Excuse me.
Sorry. Thank you, Councillor. There's a report there. Can I have somebody move the suggested resolution, please?
So moved, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Carpenter. Seconded, Councillor Viney. Councillor Carpenter, would you like to speak to this?
Mayor, just briefly, at the end of where I want to get to. I congratulate the staff on this report because it is a thorough report and it's been around a couple of times now. So I do totally believe that everything can be ticked and crossed that's had to be ticked and crossed for this to go through. It's allowable in the area, it's suitable in that area as far as the other industries or the other work that's going on in that area at the moment. It doesn't seem to be much different to me. I do accept the representations that were received and do note that most of them are not much to do with planning on this side of the grounds. I don't think there's a lot there that we can turn this down If things get out of hand, there is a process to go through later on in life, which is not sort of council planning authority. So as far as everything goes to me, I think this is ticked off, and I support this resolution there.
Thank you. Any other speakers?
Well, yes,
Councillor Van
yeah, look, I support it, man. I don't really understand why we would want to have another facility like this when we've got one just down the road. We've got rodeo grounds there on the South Road. However, it's on private land, and if the people want to engage in this sort of activity and build this sort of a facility, and it is discretionary, at council's discretion, then so be it. People need to say that he can't, and so I would support what he's doing. I just hope that this does not put the future of our rodeo ground in jeopardy, but time will tell, and that is not a planning matter anyway. So yeah, I would support it.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Beswick.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll be supporting the motion, perhaps a bit reluctantly. I have read the emails from the representative to the planners, and I understand the issues, obviously, that he's raised. As long as all the criteria is met with the planning approval, there's all the other environmental health, the police and so forth that can adjudicate on the other matters that has been raised. As a planning authority, I think everything's been ticked, as Councillor Carpenter has mentioned. So from a planning point of view, I'm happy to support this much.
Councillor Beswick. Any other speakers? Councillor Viney.
Yes, I'll be supporting the motion. I see this as an allowable use of the land that is there, and the objections that have been put up really don't cut it as far as planning grounds are concerned. So on planning grounds, I have to approve the motion.
Any other speakers? Councillor Fuller.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, of course, happy to support that as a planning authority. No reason not to. I suppose what it has, the development application process, what it has allowed staff and the applicant to become aware of is the concerns of the people that live nearby, and of the environmental health regulations that do apply when such an activity is being undertaken. So hopefully through that awareness raising exercise, there might be able to be a little more consideration given. It's always difficult where we have residential areas in amongst commercial or industrial sections. It is the challenge that we have of communities growing and changing, and it is just on all of us, I think, to try and be compassionate and mindful of both ends.
Thank you. Councillor Carpenter, would you like to close?
Thanks, Mayor. I will do. Just quickly on that, sort of bring councillors back to the notes and conditions. And number 2 is the use of the land for sports and recreation must be in accordance with the Summer Run Jackpot Series program. So it's a junior type event. It's not sort of an open cut rodeo type thing. So that's one of the conditions. And if you go right down to your notes and conditions to number 8, the owners must make themselves familiar with the requirements set out under the Environmental Management Pollution Control Act. So I think everything is there to cover council in every way, shape or form there. I think they're quite clear, quite clearly spelled out. And if the proponents adhere to that, I don't see any issues now.
Right. I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. Would somebody like to bring councillor Biscuit back in, please? Move on to 10.10, residential demolition of all buildings and construction of 3 multiple dwellings at 16 Eastland Drive, Ulverston. Can I have somebody move the suggested resolution, please?
So good, man.
Thanks, councillor Carpenter. Second, please. Councillor Fuller. Councillor Carpenter, would you like to speak to this, please?
Only quickly, Mayor, I think this report is self-explanatory, and it's a way of the future, I would imagine, of these big blocks going ahead and having, instead of just one unit on them or one house on them, we'll see 2, 3s and 4s on them. I do appreciate the representation, even though it's a new house. We probably didn't think that the one was going to be sold within 12 or 18 months and then units built right at the fence. So I understand that, but we're governed by the rules, and the rules are quite clear. We're allowed to have blocks now down to 300 square metres, so it fits all the boxes, man. There's nothing more really to happen with it.
Any other speakers? No. Did you want to close, councillor Carpenter? I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. That's the end of community community services. So, councillor Fuller, you had a question.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe I'm directing it correctly to the Director of Community Services. The General Manager will correct me if that's not right. Inquiries about the minutes for the 4th Community Representatives Group, which would normally appear on our website. So the minutes appear to be missing from May 2021 and August 2021. Just wondering if we know if there were meetings at that time and when the public might see those minutes on our website.
I can answer that, Councillor Fuller. They have been up. On Friday, they made a change and took the expression of interest article out of the 4th community committee there, and that brought the link all together. So my understanding is that they're there and that the link's been fixed.
Thank you. Move on to infrastructure services, 1011. There's a schedule there, determinations. Can I have somebody move that be received, please?
So moved.
Thanks, councillor Bestwick. A seconder, please.
Second, Mayor.
Councillor Carpenter, thank you. Any queries on those determinations? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. 10.12 is the tenders for the Gawler Bridge renewal. I can imagine all of those people who travel on that road every day going to be very excited to hear about this. So can I have somebody move the suggested resolution? Thanks, councillor Viney, and seconded councillor Carpenter. Councillor Viney, would you like to speak to this?
Yes, just to say that it's absolutely fantastic that this bridge is looking at being replaced after so long. And it's been much needed, and even better, the tender price came in much less than what we anticipated. So it's once again a win-win on the budgetary side of things. Thank you.
Any other speakers?
Just quickly,
Councillor Carpenter.
Quickly, Mayor, as a person that sat here at council and listened to people mention the unsafetiness of Gawler River Bridge over a period of years, and until I used to travel it, I wondered, it's a bridge, it should be okay, but now I travel most days, I can understand what they was really worried about and really concerned about now with the heavy loads and the longer vehicles coming down there. But I think it does show that you can get to an end result if you just work your way through it. And it's been quite helpful. I congratulate our director on this and thank the government for coming forward with the money and the way to change over. So it's a good result, good tender, but we've got to remember there is some associated works to go with that. So it's not all beer and skittles yet, man. But look forward to being finished.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Right. Councillor Viney, you didn't want to close?
No, thanks, Mayor.
Put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. 10.13 is tenders for tractor replacement F703. Can I have somebody move the suggested resolution?
So moved. Oh, go, John.
Councillor Beswick, seconded Councillor Carpenter. Councillor Beswick, would you like to speak to this?
The report, thanks, Mayor, is pretty self-explanatory. Again, as Councillor Viney mentioned in the previous agenda item that we've been able to come in under budget, which is really good, and also get an extended warranty within that budget. So I commend the staff for being able to secure what we need, and it looks like to me they've been able to get a good vehicle or a good tractor for the purpose as well. So it's good outcome all round.
Thank you. Any other speakers? I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. 10.14 is the tenders for tractor replacement F700. It's the report there. Can I have somebody move the suggested resolution? Councillor Carpenter, second. Councillor Carpenter, would you like to speak to this?
Just following from Councillor Beswick in the last one, Mayor. Some people might think that we're buying machinery for the sake of it sometimes, and might think we wore them out, but would like to point out these tractors are 10 and 11 years old. And if you ever go to fix a car or fix a tractor and it's not a few $100s anymore, it's tens of thousands of dollars to repair them. And if you look at some of our tractors that we might have, just to do a transmission alone there, would be somewhere in the vicinity between $30,000 and $40,000. So to be able to change over for what we've done under budget and get that extra warranty, there is no reason to keep old second-hand gear anymore at the current time. So a good outcome, a really good outcome, and I think the workers, the operators of these two machines will appreciate the updated machines in more comfort.
Thank you. Any other speakers? I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. We might go on to just a public question time. So I think we might go to public question time now.
Thank you, Mayor. We have 7 questions for public question time. So I'll start with the first 2, which are from Jamie Smith at Leith. So the question is, since the 14th of August 2021, has the Central Coast Council communicated with the state government, Minister Michael Ferguson, the Department of State Growth, or DHD, with regard to or about the overpass proposed to be constructed at Leith, or any other options the state government may implement at Leith? And if so, what is the date or dates of the communication or communications? What is the content of the communication or communications? And will the communication or communications be made available to ratepayers or residents? The response to that is that the General Manager sent an email to Minister Ferguson's office on the 27th of October inquiring as to when the safety improvement outcomes for the Bass Highway at Leith will be announced. The second question is, since the 14th of August 2021, has the Central Coast Council received any responses to any communications with the state government, Minister Michael Ferguson, the Department of State Growth, or GHD with regard to or about the overpass proposed to be constructed at Leith, or any other options that the state government may implement at Leith? And if so, what is the date or dates of the response or responses? What is the content of the response or responses? And will the response or responses be made available to ratepayers or residents? The answer to that is that the Secretary of the Department of State Growth phoned the General Manager on the 29th of October to advise that the Department was in the process of briefing the Minister and an announcement would be made in due course. So the second 2 are from Leo and Faye Berman. On the 2nd of September 2021, the Mayor sought to meet at a later date only with Leo Berman, Faye Berman and Tony Downey at Leith. On the 3rd of September 2021, Leo Berman advised the Mayor, as we both act for other Leith residents who also require the council to provide full written answers to our communications, we consider it unwise for the council to try and restrict meeting with Leith residents to a mere 2 or 3 residents. Leo Bureman proposed a meeting with a wider group of Leith residents and advised, we are happy to provide a suitable location for this meeting from 7th of September 2021. On 6th of September 2021, the Mayor declined to meet with the Leith residents on the basis a private meeting, not a council meeting, was sought, and the Deputy Mayor would accompany the Mayor. What was the full purpose, intent and reasons for the Mayor and Deputy Mayor wanting or intending to meet with Leo Bureman, Faye Bureman and Tony Downey at Leith, and why did the Mayor and Deputy Mayor exclude other Leith residents from the meeting? The response is that the Mayor phoned Mr. Leo Bureman to request a personal meeting with he and Mrs. Bureman at their home to better understand the potential impacts the proposed Leith overpass may have on both their property and their personal health and well-being. Mr. Bureman said he would like to include Tony Downey and 1 or 2 other people in the meeting, to which the Mayor agreed and offered to also invite the Deputy Mayor. In further conversation, it became evident that what Mr. Bureman was intending was a public meeting to discuss the Leith overpass. This would be a matter for the Department of State Growth. The second question was a letter dated the 13th of September 2021 from Leo and Faye Bureman to the Central Coast Council for the attention of the Mayor and General Manager stated, conjecture exists whether the Mayor and or Council are acting to stifle or prevent legitimate questions and correspondence from ratepayers. We await prompt advice and responses from the Council and Mayor with regard to these concerns, given that no questions are impacted by any decision by the Government of Tasmania whether to construct an overpass at Leith or implement other options to control traffic on the Bass Highway at Leith. What is the advice response from the Council and Mayor with regard to these concerns? As stated in the responses, as stated in part of my previous response, this is myself speaking, to your email of the 13th of September 2021, the Council has answered questions from your survey residents over a number of months. The Council has been open and transparent, and we have provided all the information and facts that we have. We've done this in an obliging manner. Unless you have any new questions, the Council cannot provide any further information than what it already has. So the next 3 questions, and I'll put down the 3 questions here, even though it only allows 2, is from Sally Young at Leith. The first question is, does the Council still support the establishment of a Leith Community Representatives Group? The response is the Council, through the General Manager, asked whether they wanted their, were asked whether, Miss Young asked the Council if they wanted to have a representatives group for Leith, that they'd like to have a representatives group for Leith. So the Council, through the General Manager, asked whether they wanted their own group or whether they could link into the term speech or the 4th representatives group. Ms Young came back and advised that they wanted their own group. Before commencing any formal process for the establishment of a representatives group, the General Manager advised that the Council would need to review the Leith Community Plan with the community. The General Manager also advised that it would be best to wait until a decision has been made by the State Government in relation to the safety improvements on the Bass Highway. This would allow for all to look objectively at the current Leith Community Plan in the new year. The Leith Community Representative Group will have a similar charter to both the Forth and the Turners Beach groups and will be a group to the council. So the second question was, if yes, could the council confirm the commencement date of community engagement reprocesses to form the representative group? The response is the commencement date for a review of the Leith Community Plan has not been established at this time, but will be scheduled in the first half of 2022. The third question was, if the council no longer supports the formation of a representative group for Leith, why not? And this question is not applicable at this stage.
Pardon me, we're going to move on to 10.15, the green waste dumping signage policy. Can I have somebody move the suggested resolution, please? Thanks, Councillor Fuller. Second, please. Councillor Heskett. Councillor Fuller, would you like to speak to this?
Enthusiastic, yeah. Green waste is part of the broader waste issue and a waste disposal issue that we have in our community. But in some ways it is one of the most dangerous because of its capacity to spread weeds elsewhere. I'm not turning to look at you because when I do, my microphone stops working. So I'm really pleased with the signage that's in the example there. I think it helps people understand exactly why green waste dumping is not a good thing, and it reminds them, of course, that we have the FOGO service in place for most of the residents of Central Coast. So we've through that way providing a much easier way to dispose of the garden waste, and hopefully that just the policy provides the necessary guidance to staff, and the signage helps residents understand its importance.
Any other speakers? Councillor Heskett.
Just a quick one as discussed in our workshop on that, just that the council ensures that we monitor the timelines for installation and removal of these. As discussed in there, I was having that in there unless we actually do adhere to the comments that we've made in that policy. Thank you.
Thank you. No other speakers. Councillor Fuller, did you want to close?
Thank you, Mayor.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? The motion is carried. 10.16 is the vegetation damage signage policy. There's a report there. Can I have somebody move the suggested resolution?
So moved, Mayor.
Councillor Carpenter and seconded Councillor Briney. Councillor Carpenter, would you like to speak to this one, please?
Thanks, Mayor. It's another one of them processes we've got to go through, updating and reviewing our policies for a start, the same as the previous one and the next one. The thing here is that it all outlines that our signs will all be the same size and shape and carry a much, I'm trying to think of the right word, not so much kind message, but a much more informative message to people. Educational message. Thanks, Councillor Heskett. And we've got to realise that there is some ways of reading through this policy and interpreting in all different ways and shapes. Is it about how we do these signs and where we put them? Is it about what causes the sign to go up in certain areas? It's a bit of everything. And I think we can improve on this, but we've got to have something there to put out. It's not about only just about individual trees, it's about vegetation right along anywhere that we have crown leases, along the foreshores, along the riverbanks and everything. So I would also just say, Mayor, I think in my time there've only been 2 signs that are erected. So it's not, it's an issue in certain areas for sure, but it gives the staff a policy to work by and to be able to put through. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Beswick.
Thanks, Mayor. as you're all aware in the last meeting, I have a problem with some of this area, and I think we've got a fair bit of overreach. With tree, let's call it tree damage, I'll call it tree pruning. In a lot of instances, we've got to ask why people may prune a tree. Others would say that it's been damaged, but in the appropriate way of doing something, it improves or it keeps the amenity that a person in our community has been used to for upwards of 60 or 70 years. In my time here, I've been dismayed at some of the comments that I've received where we couldn't change something because perhaps it might offend somebody else. Sometimes the wrong decisions can be made, and we need to face up to that and to make things right. In that time, I've had somebody that suggested that they'd like a tree pruned because it's affecting, I know some of the staff and the general manager definitely doesn't like the view option, but in the end, it's an amenity that our community buys in a property that they have, and they're not entitled to that as such, but they shouldn't have it totally removed because in the end, that affects the value of, in some cases, their properties and so forth. I haven't had a lot of time to do a lot of research on this just at this time, but I found two councils where they do look at view, solar access and so forth when they're looking at any tree policies. I'm happy to have the signs where there is blatant destruction, but I think we need to be, as a council, a lot more empathetic with a community member that comes in and suggests that tree has been placed in the wrong area. It's going to end up obstructing our view because trees grow. And don't think I'm anti-trees. You've only look at our front nature strip and you can see that we're not anti-trees, it's full of trees. So this is not about me, it's about our community. Somebody did say to me once, can you find out for me how much it costs me if I do cut a tree out? Because it might be worth it. Yeah, that might sound like a funny thing to say, but in the end, sometimes that's something that might come to pass. I'll support this motion, but in the discussion that we've had prior to the meeting, it has been agreed that we would look at it when we come up with our policy for the Greening Central Coast strategy, because I think there needs to be some wording in there that's got some protection for our community, and I think the community would look forward to that. Again, I just go back to, in the end, why does damage occurs, and we need to look at why. I'll just use an example here, and this is from the Launceston area. Developers or residents requesting pruning of a healthy and structurally sound tree to facilitate development works, view or solar access may be required to pay for the cost of pruning, but they will look at it. It's not that, no, we can't. There's a North Sydney one, and I won't keep going on, but I just want it noted that there needs to be some wording in our policy for the Greening Central Coast, which I'm supportive of, but we need to remember what the community's needs are as well.
Any other speakers? Councillor Viney.
It's obviously supporting the vegetation damage signage policy because I see it as a signage policy and a change of the signage that we have been using in the past to a much user-friendly, educational sort of sign. And I do note what Councillor Carlton had to say. We've only ever used these signs twice before, and really made because of vandalism by people within our community, and it was a sign put out there to warn them against doing that and giving them reasons why they shouldn't do it. Therefore, I see the actual wordage required, as Councillor Beswick has said. Maybe we need to look more at wordage in the green policy to go into this, but at the moment, we're talking about the actual signs themselves as far as I'm concerned, and therefore we'll support the motion.
Councillor Viney. Any other speakers? Councillor Carpenter, would you like to close?
Thanks, Mayor. Definitely Councillor Beswick's words and respected wholeheartedly on the concerns for residents, because council role is to serve the community. So if we ever want to go down left of that, you know where we're going to finish up. And so your concerns are quite relevant. And there, I think, well, I do believe there's a place for your concerns to be mentioned later on and through our green strategy and RM strategy. I really do. And totally wholeheartedly, believe what you're saying and understand that, and would support something like that to make sure that we have community come with us and not against us all the time. So that's what we need to do. Mayor, I will say, when the sign went up at Sulphur Creek some years ago, that was the first one, and I think you and myself went out there for a ride one day, and I said, what are we doing putting this sign up here? The people of Sulphur Creek wanted to have a view of the ocean. So, as I said, we never know what we don't know, and I didn't understand of coastal erosion back then to what I do today, and how important it is to keep that vegetation there. But I do also understand the fact that people do want their views that they were used to. So there's got to be a line somewhere where we can always come to, and I think this is what the council should always work to, and make sure that we come to that line that everybody does somewhere, give and take a little bit, because that sign at the end of the day that went up did stop that pruning of that vegetation along that foreshore. And if we don't do that, we're going to be doing more things like the revetment wall of Penguin over a long period of time. And I'd sooner see green vegetation, while I would see rock wall roll keeping the sea out. So there is some give and take, but I think it is more about the sign. So yeah, put it up there for adoption.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. 1017 is a public toilet policy. Who would like to move and second this one?
I'll move it.
Thanks, Councillor Beswick, and second Councillor Beswick. Would you like to speak to this motion?
Shouldn't make my heart in this office, but as one gets older, one needs to know where toilets are, probably more so than we do as a younger person. No, this is a policy, it's just being confirmed again for a duration of time. We did study this, not study it, but we did go through this in a workshop a week or so ago. I do have some concerns when I see in the document where there may be some toilets going to be perhaps looked at being removed. And I think we need to be very careful of when we think about those options. But in the end, we need to have a policy around that. So I'm happy to support that.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Biscuit.
Just to echo that as well, I believe it's up for review in the next year or so, so that will drive that, and that is where we can discuss more or less where the towards 2 or 10 years as well. So I'd just like to support the motion.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Fuller.
Thank you, Mayor. I suppose I take every opportunity when we're talking about public toilets just to reinforce the need for not only the clear signage around where the toilets are located, which I think we've done an improved job of in recent times, but for ones that are closed over a particular period of time, some sort of clear signage for the population to understand when they are open and when they are closed, and if they are closed, where the most, where the next one is. It's bit of an ongoing issue. We've tried a number of ways to try and address that. I know that the director is very mindful of it, but just want to take that opportunity to ask that we keep that in mind at all times.
Thank you. Close, Councillor Beswick.
I think I've closed. Thanks, Nick.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. Which brings us to the end of infrastructure services, and Councillor Carpenter, you've had a question for the director.
Thanks, Mayor. It's just a question regarding speed limit on rural roads. I've had some concerns director ages ago, and I understand the process the council's got to go through. So it was asked of me if we could get the speed limit on the Caprona Road reduced to 80 kilometres an hour, because now it's such a heavy user road of agricultural machinery, and they're not 2 metres wide anymore, they're 3 and 4 metres wide, and plus the gardens and the berry farms are great users of that road. So that was one. The other one was the western side of South Rowena Road in Guns Plains, which is quite a narrow road. Again, it's 100 k's, and the residents wanted to know whether that could be lowered to 80 kilometres. But in saying that, there is a lot of roads, and I understand the process. We might have to change completely somehow around the 100k, where we should be starting lower and lifting the speed limit up if that's suitable. So instead of trying to fight our way back from 100 kilometres, if the rural roads are 80, when they're a certain grade, and then when they're upgraded, they can be lifted up to 100. So it's a question I understand Paul will have to take it on notice and work his way through that.
Thank you. Thank you for taking on notice.
Thank you. Move on to corporate services, 1018, statutory determinations. There's a report there. Can I have somebody move that that be received, please?
So move me.
Thanks, Councillor Carpenter. Councillor Heskett. Councillor Carpenter, anything?
Yeah, there is. I'm going to use this as an opportunity. You shouldn't have asked me, was there anything? As an opportunity for Surf Club Road in Penguin. Is that what it's called? The new section after it gets hot mixed. And there was no parking along the new bit of a road, there's Surf Club. If there's an opportunity, or whether with some consultation, whether there could be parking allowed along there after it's all finished and done. The road is only 150 metres long. It would alleviate about 20 odd parking spots down the river and down alongside the main street, and with the new facilities that have been built there, it's an opportunity to park cars. If people cannot wait for 2 minutes for one-way traffic, I'd be a standard. So I'm just using that opportunity, Mayor, to mention it tonight for future reference.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Beswick.
Might I make a comment on that, Councillor Carpenter?
You did book, did you?
No comment.
That wasn't me.
I understand that, why we would suggest that. I wouldn't like to see it parking all the way along. I think we could have a bay and then a passing lane. That would be my only comment on that. I'm not sure how many cars you might get along there to park end on end, but you could end up with a stream of cars trying to come in and you'll never get out. I think it needs to be perhaps a bit of a passing bay in the middle, perhaps if we did go down that option. Thanks. Good idea. No comment.
Oh, I've never heard anybody talk about statutory determinations before.
Which is welcomed, I'm sure, by the director. It's because Surf Road in Penguin has attributed 75% of the parking offences for the month. Why it draws our attention. And my question was going to be, I just wasn't sure if that was the permanent and ongoing parking arrangements.
Question now.
Yeah, thank you. It's a temporary arrangement while the works are being undertaken, and we have looked at making some of that area able to be parked on and the rest no standing. So we need to get the contract finished first, and then we'll reassess the amount of parking on that section. Good job.
Thank you.
Any other speakers? I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. 1019 is the disposal or transfer of council land adjacent to 12 Rainy Place in West Ulverston. Report there. Can I have somebody move the suggested resolution?
So moved.
Thanks, Councillor Viney. A second, Councillor Beswick. Councillor Viney, would you like to speak to this?
Yes, once again, it's rationalisation of land that the council owns, and if you've seen the diagram of the piece of land, you'd have to wonder how it ever became into existence to start with. And I think in the long term, it's better if it is actually passed on to either the state or the federal governments that are assigned to it and actually have access from street frontage to that piece of land.
Thank you. Any other speakers? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? The motion is carried. 1020 is the sale of council land at Lot 1, West Ella Drive, Turners Beach. So report there. Can I have somebody move the suggested resolution?
So moved, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Carpenter. A seconder, please. Councillor Fuller. Councillor Carpenter, would you like to speak to this?
I think this is pretty self-explanatory, Mayor, and for the public, we have discussed this as a workshop. It is a parcel of land that, as for council goes, probably sees no use for it into the future, and if it goes to public auction, somebody might be able to make some use out of it over their lifetime, Mayor, so definitely endorse the resolution.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Heskett.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to acknowledge this part came about through community discussion. Just that the council perhaps should see if there's any other land like that needs to be, like just suggested that has been a thought process that's been done before, and this wasn't found during that, so I'm just not sure if there's opportunities for other positions that may be available to.
Any other speakers? Councillor Carpenter,
No.
would you oppose? I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. That brings us to the closure of the meeting for